Welcome to Redditors. Please hit the like button. Let's get on with the video.
What was your "this person is on another level" of stupid moment? I locked my purse with my keys and cell phone in my apartment. I went to the office to ask maintenance to let me in. The woman at the desk said she would call maintenance and asked for a phone number they could reach me at. I said there wasn't one because my cell phone was locked in my apartment. She insisted she needed a number. I said I could give her the number but that I wouldn't be able to answer if they called. She suggested I get my phone out of my apartment so that I could answer when they called. I rolled my eyes at her and said if I could get in my apartment to get my cell phone I wouldn't need maintenance to let me in. She never did understand me, but maintenance did show up 10 minutes later. Update: since a lot of people are asking, you don't need a key to lock the door to the apartment, just unlock it. On the way out the door, I turned the lock on the back of the doorknob and then pulled the door shut, locking the door. I had put my keys in my purse because I was also carrying a laptop bag and a few other things. I thought I picked up my purse with the other bags but I hadn't. Yes, I know I was stupid for locking myself out. Reminds me of the time my cell phone completely died. Wouldn't power on even if I charged it. So I called Apple support. Guy asked what's wrong with my phone. I told him it won't turn on. He asks me to power it on so we could troubleshoot. I tell him it won't turn on. He sighs and tell me he won't be able to diagnose the problem if I won't cooperate and power on my phone for him. What? I once worked in a Midwestern grocery store deli and I was trying to explain to a woman that the name brand and generic brand of the macaroni salad that we carried were in fact identical. The woman yelled at me saying she could only have the generic brand because one is made with mayo and the other is made with mayonnaise and I don't like mayo. When I tried to explain that mayo is an abbreviation of mayonnaise, she just said I'm from the South. I know my food and tutted away. She is going to be in for a shock when she goes to the pharmacy for her prescription of mayonnaise. I got a concussion a while back. A friend of mine told me not to come close because it might be contagious. They weren't kidding. A girl in my school had gotten about 3 concussions within a year and when she hit her head the 4th time and blacked out for a minute, refused to go to the doctor because last time they said if I got another concussion it could cause brain damage. So I'm not going to let them give me another one. I think the 3rd one might have done it for her. Ex-flatmate cancelled the gas and electricity contract because it was too expensive. Wondered why we had no more electricity nor gas. She thought we paid €90 a month to get a hotline 24/7 in case of problem. I was friends with a couple who only had enough money to pay either the cable bill or the electricity. They paid the cable. A couple days later the power was turned off. Reminds me of choosing beer over toilet paper. I worked at a restaurant and we had a dish that was just a whole grilled chicken, chopped in 2 pieces. A woman who ordered for delivery called us, absolutely scathing, complaining that her order of 1 whole chicken only contained 2 chicken breasts. Had to explain to grown-a woman that chicken only have 2 breasts. She wanted some of that Total Recall chicken. I also work at a restaurant. A couple years back, we actually got a delivery of weird mutated chickens that had 3 breasts. I mean it looked odd but we actually thought it was really cool. Extra meat you know. Unfortunately the supplier was worried about food safety so did a total recall on the whole batch. I had to explain to a girl why you couldn't grow your hair down in front of your face and just cut out eye holes. Even explaining it her she couldn't grasp it and brushed me off as being too smart. This is my favorite one. Lol. I worked at a pet store in college. This customer asked me which food would make his pit bull swell. I suggested a high protein food with a good amount of exercise but advised that a lot of it was determined by the dog's genetics. He asked me if we sold genetics. Answer: yes, but it comes pre-packaged in dog. Rescued a co-worker on the side of the road with a flat tire, waiting for the tow truck. I pointed out the nail at the top of their tire. They scoffed and looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world and exclaimed, "That's not true BC, it's flat at the bottom." I just walked away and never brought it up again. Gosh, what an idiot. Nails are always flat on the top. I was friends with a guy who believed those fake Apple adverts like Apple Wave microwave your phone for instant battery charge. I was so dumbfounded that he actually fell for it. When I saw him the week after and he had a new phone it all clicked for me. This was my first experience in retail where I learned what many customers would be like. Seasons were changing, so we put a lot of shirts we had to get rid of in the front and made them 50% off. I was working the register when a woman came up to buy her things. I rang her up and could see a look on her face like something was wrong. That's when the following happened. "Lady, why is this so much?" Me. "Pardon me, lady, this should only be $10 not $20. I thought that maybe her item was on sale, so I asked if she could point out the sign because I wasn't aware of it. It was a small store and we didn't have to walk anywhere. "Lady, this sign here." Me. "This sign says that all shirts are 50% off." "Lady, yes, so why is this full price?" Me. "This is a hat." I used to work with a girl who was sweet but so dumb. We were in a meeting once and somehow someone mentioned baked ham. My manager said, "Ugh, I hate ham. It looks like human flesh." The girl I mentioned was sitting next to me and looked horrified and whispered, "Does ham really come from people?" I'd be more worried about the manager that knows what cooked human flesh looks like. My wife's cousin and her husband, not baby daddy of her unborn child, fell on self-induced hard times and needed a place to stay for a bit. We set up a queen-sized air mattress in the living room for them. For 3 weeks I woke up to go to work and every morning saw them sleeping on it sideways with their legs hanging off the edge. Then one day she asked me to buy her a bigger air mattress because this one was hard on their backs. I told her to turn her body. The effing thing even has a built-in pillow on one end. Her response was that then they couldn't see the TV. Then effing turned the air mattress to face the TV. That's the story of how I became an a-hole to the trailer trash side of the family. The bad part is that it's only one of many stories. The husband was a cook at Applebee's. The baby daddy was a cook at Applebee's. And her new husband was another cook from the same effing Applebee's. All working together. I worked at a meat desk for a summer job, and a woman came in and asked if we had any meat without spices or sauces. She then proceeded to tell us that the doctor had said that her dogs got sick because she kept feeding them pizza and they couldn't handle the spices. She then said, "Oh, but they love pizza so much. I feel bad for them. I'm probably still gonna feed them pizza." I hate people like this who knowingly harm their children and or pets' health. At least with children you can call CPS, but pets are sadly at these dumbasses' mercy. Dated a guy, we watched Titanic. He thought the movie was stupid because the boat sank. It wasn't believable. You can't recover from that, ever. It's such a stupid premise. Though, boats don't sink. They float. Everyone knows that. That's the whole reason for having a boat to begin with. Well, they did say it was unsinkable. Spent 7 years working for Tsar. Had a pretty sweet detail where I would assist passengers who did not have ID or assist SAR agents if they had questions about the validity of the given ID. I get a call on the radio asking for assistance in verifying an ID. I come over and ask what the issue is. Agent hands me a driver's license and says can't accept this Canadian ID. Hearing this, I assume it's expired or the wrong name. I take a look and see that it is an Alaskan driver's license. I quickly approve the passenger and send them on their way. I then spent 10 minutes explaining that Canadian DLs are acceptable according to TSA regulations and Alaska has never been a Canadian territory. This co-worker has a master's degree in mathematics and served 25 years in the US Air Force. It's dumbfounding how people can be so high functioning in some areas and leave you bewildered as to how they even manage to survive to adulthood in others. I think the bigger issue is that he has a master's degree in math and works for TSA. I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, where do you keep the animals at night? Twice in my career. To this day I still find great joy imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. My boss asked me to file the spam mail. This man was one of those people who think they are the smartest person in the room. So spam folder okay, weird, but okay. I couldn't find any spam mail that wasn't already in the spam folder. Afternoon comes and he stomps over to my desk area and wants to know why the spam isn't in the spam folder as he throws a manila folder on my desk. The folder was labeled spam. He prints spam mail out and files it, and with any sign of skepticism on my face. He'd insist the IT guy told him that's where spam goes, so he got himself a folder and that was it. I had to get the F out. This story is in good faith. I was asking my friend, Jay, when he learned about 9/11. He started telling me this specific story of how he walked outside and saw smoke everywhere and how he asked his mom about it. He claimed she said planes hit the towers. I stared at him, just silently taking in the story. We live in the Midwest. There was no way he saw the debris from the towers. Also, we were born in 2003. Knew a girl in middle school that didn't understand the concept of perspective. She also thought north was whichever direction you were facing at the time. Ah yes, true north. The time a friend told me how much he hates potatoes while eating french fries, and I literally blew his mind by telling him french fries are potatoes. Wonder how your friend would feel about onion rings after learning what's inside those things. Potatoes? Not me, but a friend worked in a call center for a CC company in the disputes department. The number one item people called to say they never purchased interest charge. To be fair, our old co-worker was telling me that there's people out there that think Alaska is an island. I laughed in disbelief, but another co-worker overheard and was flabbergasted. What? It's not, but it's always drawn off to the side with Hawaii. Point made. Another time a guy with a really thick accent walked in. Same girl was like, oh wow, I like your accent, where are you from? Said guy. Have a guess her response? Havigus? I've never heard of that place before, and walked away. She is super sweet, just slightly oblivious. Havigus ain't no country I ever heard of. They speak English in Havigus? Someone in my history class argued that Mussolini was a type of pasta. I knew a kid in high school who thought Tortellini was a dictator. Benito Tortellini. Summer camp counselor made all the kids on a school bus keep the windows up on a hot day because they could feel the air conditioning coming from the front of the bus. It was so hot, and I, maybe 10 years old at the time, had to explain to the 40-year-old counselor that the air conditioning they were feeling was the wind coming in through the bus driver's open window. She still didn't believe me. I begged her to ask the bus driver to confirm the bus did not have air conditioning, but she didn't want to bother him while he was driving. It was like a 1-hour bus trip. She finally got hot enough and asked the bus driver if the bus had air conditioning, and he jokingly said the bus only has air conditioning when the windows are down and the wheels are turning. She then looked back at me and said, see, I told you the bus had air conditioning, and proceeded to force us to keep the windows up. How much is a $50 worth? She was the newest teller my boss hired. Will never forget that moment. I've gotta say, I've said some dumb sh when I first start a new job. It's easy to go into I know nothing mode while also being so stressed your brain stops working. Me. When I was a kid, I had a real old transistor radio. Asked my parents for a newer radio, so I could receive and listen to newer music. I mean, that could make sense if you were the right age for the AM/FM split. Classmate was convinced that winning the lottery is 50% chance, because you either win it not. In last year of high school, even though it's obvious, I want to put it into words. Probability is not equal for each possibility. Well, I don't know. You're either right or you're wrong here. So the way I see it, there's a 50/50 chance that's correct. A friend didn't have coins for a vending machine but did have $1. She folded up the dollar and forced it into the coin slot and then did not understand why she did not get her item. We were talking about the Irish potato famine in college, and this one girl said, oh wow, I thought it was the potato family, as if that wasn't enough. She later asked why were they so eager to get jobs? If I was that hungry I wouldn't even try to get a job. Man. I wish I was joking. Oddly, she's so dumb she is smart. Jobs were net calorie drains during the potato famine. Many Irish died as they worked themselves to death. Also the food they earned went to their kids, so the work did save them. Bleak times. Also, for those who don't know, the famine was an artificial economic creation of the British, and not a natural famine. I asked a girl when the last time was that she changed her oil. She said, oil? You mean gas? Yeah, a lot of people never change their oil. Ever. Well, it will last the life of the engine. There was a girl in my high school who forced the teacher to pause a documentary about people living in mud huts in Africa because she was upset that they were showing us fictional movies in a history class. It took everyone else in the room to convince her that people actually live like that in some places. Wealthy area living for yap. Funny in part because it's usually other way around, people who don't believe that there are modern cities in many countries in Africa. I had to explain to a woman that apples did not contain any gluten, meat, or dairy ingredients. How can one think apples contain dairy? She thought gluten was found in every major grain, and that apples were a grain because they have seeds. When I was in high school, there were these two girls that constantly just blew my mind. One of them asked what does insignificance mean, and the other replied why something is significant. The first girl looked at her and went to okay, I get it. Can confirm. Some high school kids really are another level of airhead. Just wide open space between the ears for dumps to roam around and graze freely. That reminds me of that 90s movie where two girls are talking and one asks, I know you can be overwhelmed and you also can be underwhelmed, but can you ever be overwhelmed? Then the other one goes, I think you can in Europe. I'm an identical twin, and have been asked all manner of utterly ridiculous questions about it throughout my life. But I think the stupidest was when a girl once asked me, do you ever get yourselves mixed up with each other? I responded, are you asking me if I ever sometimes think I'm my brother? She replied, yeah, no, I don't. I work retail. Had a customer a few weeks back pull her mask down to cough into the open air and then pull it back up. Really makes you wonder why there are people like this in the world. I want to ask these people why they did that, then explain that they're wearing the mask for that exact reason. To protect others, but I'd be worried that they'd just be like, oh, this is to protect others, not me. So you're saying I don't need to wear the mask at all? My friend is allergic to walnuts. One day, he made this sandwich in our college dorm. It had walnuts garnished on top of the bread. I then remember him telling me, oh look, there's walnuts on here, and proceeds to eat the entire sandwich. At the time I didn't know he was allergic. I leave to shower, and when I come back there are two paramedics in our dorm taking him out on a stretcher. The following day I asked what happened, to which he replies something along the line, I accidentally ate some walnuts which I'm allergic to, and by the time I went to get a Benadryl, my throat had started to close and I couldn't swallow it, so I had to call 911 inches. I was just utterly shocked how he even let this entire situation happen. I really couldn't believe it. College days, am I right? Once at my old job a co-worker came out the back and I offered him some chocolate someone had dropped off for us. He thanked me and popped it in his mouth and then chewed it for a bit and cheerfully asked me, oh, do you know if there's nuts in this, by the way? I'm allergic to them, so I shouldn't really be eating chocolate. I was like, what? I've literally never seen a bar of chocolate that didn't contain the may have traces of nuts warning. Why are you eating this? And he goes, oh yeah, good point, and spat it into the bin and then happily wandered back out the front like nothing had happened.